Everybody, at some moment...
We all have egos.
Yeah, we all have egos.
Right.
And insofar as we have egos, we feel like death has everything that ever existed aimed right at them all the time. Insofar as we can suspend our ego through loving compassion for another person, insofar as the feelings of somebody else are more important than what we want, think, feel, know, and believe, then, insofar as we are that way, we are freed from the fear of death, because there's nothing for death to aim at. If you can have a life and not have an ego, then you have already entered into the kingdom of heaven. That's the standard for Jesus, right? It doesn't mean not caring about your own life. It means not caring from the ego perspective about your life.
You want to care about your health. You want to care about
all of that.
All of that.
And your conduct, but you don't want to care about the irrepeatable fact of your consciousness, as if that's why the whole world was created. Well, you know.
That movie,
The Truman Show, yeah. These people are all lost in their, the world. The whole world is...
Self-dialogue.
Exactly. The whole world is their own movie, running in their own heads.
And it's not, and what you're saying is it's not that spread out. Death is inevitable, and almost it goes back to the animalistic nature when he's on his deathbed.
Yeah.
But that last thing he's able to do is like the furthest progress he's came in years, really.
His whole life. It's the
most important thing he did.
Absolutely. The most important thing he ever did was have a moment of fatherly compassion for his own child. And Tolstoy is such a ruthless moralist, right? You do not escape this guy's judgment, this guy's eye. He's only interested in what is actually true and what actually happens. And that's where he starts. Did this guy ever have a single moment when he loved his son? Yes. That's enough to save him from the terror of death. Did that mother ever have a single moment when she loved anybody in her household? No.
And that was to show the wretched other side of how bad it could be.
That's right. Nobody in this story loves anybody except for Gerasim, who loves his master, and for one moment when the father loves his son and the son loves the father. There are two instances of love. And love is very simple. Love is not, you don't need to write encyclopedias about it. Love is, I cherish you. I have tenderness for you. Insofar as there is I, it is for you. That's love. 3 times it happens in the story. So it's not a world where it's impossible, right? There is human compassion. Notice it comes from Gerasim, the servant, the healthy young Chechen.
White teeth, right?
Yeah, the healthy young Cossack, the healthy young guy from Chechnya, that place, which is still a problem for the Russians, right? To the east of the Black Sea, or Black Sea. I still call it the Pontic Sea, but that's because I'm working with archaic Greek nationalism, which the old names for places. We don't call it Istanbul or the Black Sea. We have other names. But yeah, east of that place is where Gerasim comes from. So it would be something like having a servant from Georgia if you lived in Boston. That's the kind of social difference it is.
So Theo,
yeah.
How does like the average, whatever that means, person in America or in New England get that into their life? And by that, my definition in this case is that instant that he had with his son. How do they get that into their life before it's too late, or before it's too?
They read this story. They read the story and take it seriously. And now, what does it mean? It doesn't mean you have to quit your job. It means you have to change your stance toward other people. It means you regard each other in loving kindness. And once you do that, there are certain kinds of things you're not going to do. They just become impossible. And there are certain things you will not be afraid of. And there are certain powers which will flow forward because of the nature of reality itself into your life. It's like learning how to speak. Once you learn how to speak, all kinds of things are possible in the world. But if you can't speak, they'll make Helen Keller jokes about you for the rest of your life. Right? If you can't speak, you can't speak. If you can't speak, you can't function. Helen Keller is heroic because she found a way to speak when she couldn't. That woman was silenced to a freakish existence, a consciousness unable to utter itself to anyone. With Anne Sullivan, she found a way. All right. She's like Ivan Illyich. She finds a way out of the darkness. So how does anybody find their way out of the darkness of living for ease, pleasure, and decency? Reading this story is a pretty good way. Better way, loving kindness. Help people who need it.
So loving kindness.
Setting a good example. Loving kindness. Just, living. And then we can finish up with a short description of Tolstoy's sense of religious life, moral life, spiritual life, philosophical life. It's all sort of wrapped up together for him. He does believe in God. He does not believe that God is Santa Claus, who rewards and punishes. God is the force of love, period. You get on the right side with him, and this is the kind of life you have. You don't learn how to speak, you will never be able to communicate. You don't learn how to have loving kindness, you will not be a certain kind of human being. That's it. Heaven and hell, not important to him. Tolstoy is interested in here and now, and the experience of living in the presence of the loving kindness of God now. Jesus is the great example of that. The claims about the supernatural, from Tolstoy's point of view, are unnecessary and kind of bogeyman tactics to jazz up what doesn't need to be jazzed up, which is, from his point of view, a natural, obvious truth about being alive, as true and necessary and obvious as the way you breathe. That loving kindness gives you happiness and joy and your life, and the absence of it gives you fear. And all the pretending that you're important because you're a college professor or a lawyer or a doctor or anything else, if you do not have loving kindness, you will have a life of terror and fear and fraud. And when the inevitable happens to you, you will not be prepared. Whereas if you have a life of loving kindness, you will not regret, fear, or suffer in the face of death. For Tolstoy, that was paradise, right? To not fear, regret, or suffer in the face of death, what could make you stronger in life? What could be dumber than to keep yourself in the power of fear where death is concerned? So the answer is, if you want not to suffer this way, don't be Leo Tolstoy. Read The Death of Ivan Illyich. Pay attention. I think finally, actually, Tolstoy wouldn't even require you to read the book, right? Anybody paying attention will understand that this is true. Thoreau is like this, right? In Walden, Thoreau doesn't say reading my book is going to wake you up. Thoreau says looking at your own life is going to wake you up. Why are you not looking at your own life? Jesus, Buddha, Socrates, Thoreau, there's a certain kind of prophetic, moral provocateur stance. And Tolstoy increasingly took it in his later writings. Thank you. It's been wonderful to talk with you.